So in today's video, we're going to do something that's quite simple, but probably I couldn't find much on YouTube. So I hope this helps out folks out there. So I'm going to swap out the sway bar and sway bar links on this 2007 Jeep Rubicon behind me. Now the problem is this Rubicon has a mechanical or like a motorized sway bar. And I'm going to swap it out with one that's not motorized. And then I'm just going to tuck the motor up in the front of the Jeep, zip tie it so that the light for the sway bar won't blink. About a month ago, I had death wobble going on the Jeep, and I swapped out a bunch of stuff. I swapped out the front track bar, all the inner and outer tie rod. I did the whole set off of Extreme Terrain's website. I swapped out the 4 ball joints with some heavy duty ones. I also swapped out the steering stabilizer, put in a dual steering stabilizer kit. The last thing I'm going to do is this sway bar. I don't think the sway bar has anything to do with the death wobble, but I did want to swap it out because the sway bar links on it were so torn up and so deteriorated, they needed to be swapped out anyway. Also, I never really liked the motorized sway bar release that comes on the Rubicons. And if you go to put on a factory replacement, it's like $2,500 just for the part, for me, which is ridiculous. So here are the parts that I bought. You can see the sway bar link right there and the sway bar. I bought it's basically a 1.2 inch diameter sway bar, super beefy, from Extreme Terrain. Now it says on their website that doesn't fit. I think it's gonna fit. I think the reason it says that is because the Rubicon is motorized and I'm swapping it out to a non-motorized sway bar. But I don't really care if the button releases the sway bar. If you want, you can just buy some releasable sway bar links and you're in business. So let me show you underneath the Jeep and you can kind of see why I'm replacing it. All right, so every time I look up on a YouTube video under somebody's Jeep, it's super hard to see what they're showing me, and I can see why now. So here is the sway bar link on this side, and here's the sway bar that I'm swapping out. Now you can see over here, that's the motor for the sway bar, and I'm basically taking the whole entire sway bar out. It's a pretty easy swap. All I've got to do is unscrew these 2 screws and the 2 on the other side. I've already released the sway bar link, which was attached right here, and then I'll just put the new one in. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but this sway bar link on this side, the rubber that was in here was so dry rotted that it just fell right out. So these sway bar links needed to be replaced anyway. And I figure while I'm in here, I'll take the sway bar out. Again, here's the motor. And I just don't have any desire. Now, a couple years ago, I took this motor off and greased it up, but it just never has worked very well. So I'm just gonna take it off altogether. Again, I've got these 2 bolts right here and these 2 bolts right here, and then I'll just put the other one on. All right, so I finally got the sway bar out. The main bolts are the hardest ones to get out. So now I'm gonna attach the new sway bar ends to this one. I just wanted to lay it out side by side and see the size. So I want you to see the difference in the old sway bar links. Look at how dry rotted this thing is. I mean, it's in terrible shape, but even worse, look at this side. The rubber on the inside had dry rotted all the way through, so essentially I was riding without a sway bar on this side. And then when you look at the new one, you can kind of see how good the rubber is. Everything looks good. I may not have needed a sway bar. I would have only needed these links. And these only are like $30 a piece, so they're super cheap. So now I've got the sway bar installed, the sway bar end links installed. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this motor off and I'm gonna zip tie it under the Jeep so the light in the Jeep won't be flashing. So I don't want the light in the Jeep to flash, so I'm gonna attach the motor and, but obviously the button won't do anything, but at least the light won't flash. So here's the motor for the sway bar, and the way this reads is this button has to stay depressed, and then this thing pushes out to release the sway bar. So what I've got to do is figure out a way to keep this pressed down, and then right here I'm going to attach the cable, and then I'm going to zip tie this whole thing up under the Jeep so the light won't come on in the Jeep. All right, so what I decided to do was just take some black electrical tape and just wrap it around just to keep it down. Not sure if that'll work, but it's not like I need this motor. I basically am using this so that I don't have to buy something to bypass it. So we'll see over the years if this holds up. So I've got the motor. Here's the cable that it has to attach to. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to attach it onto the motor. And then once I get it attached, I'm going to try to zip tie this motor under the Jeep. Alright. Motor's attached. Now I'm just going to go zip tie it under the Jeep. So as you can see, we've got the motor and zip tied right here. It's obviously not doing anything except keeping the light from coming on. We've got the sway bar installed right here. And then if you come back here, where can you see? Here we go. Then you can see here's the sway bar link. So here's the new sway bar and the new sway bar link. All right, so we're out on our first ride with the new sway bar. I'm going to get going here in a second, and used to with the old sway bar, when you'd get going at speed, it felt like it was kind of a boat. It was kind of floppy. And right now it's like super tight. When you used to, when I would do the steering wheel like this back and forth, it would feel, Everett, do you remember kind of how it almost felt like a boat?
Yeah.
And now when I do it back and forth, it's like super tight. There is no flopping now.
Yes,
That's a giant difference. I mean, you can really feel that difference. You know, the one of the mechanics that was helping me attach some of the pieces, he said it feels like you're driving a boat. Well, it doesn't feel that way now. I mean, when I go back and forth, it's solid. Would you agree, Everett?
Yeah, I agree.
So what can you tell?
It's just like, I feel like it's just smoother all around when you make turns. Because, like, it almost feel like you're, like, going to fall over when you would turn before. So,
It doesn't feel that way now, does it?
Yes, sir.
So something else that was real important was for the sway bar light not to be on. So you can see that keeping the motor hooked up, the sway bar light's not blinking. If I had unplugged the light, the motor, the sway bar light would be blinking right now. So I think we had an overall successful install of this sway bar. All right, so I hope this video helped. I know that for me, a 2007 JK Rubicon owner, the thought of spending $2,400 or $2,500 on a sway bar plus labor was just, I wasn't going to do that. So being able to spend $200 on this sway bar and $30 per link, so basically $260, swapping it out and everything works fine and the drive is great, I think it was a good install. Hope it helps y'all.